Welcome to AGAPE Social Justice, where we focus on love, truth, and justice. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited. Can you see the smile on my face? I'm so excited about the guest who's here with me today. I think a little over a year ago was when I first had the opportunity to get to know Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald. And for those of you who know me, you know there are a select group of people who I will give my time for. Karen McDonald is one of those people. And so I am so excited to have her here today. I want you to learn more about who she is, the amazing work that's being done in the prosecutor's office, and how you can join the effort and make sure that we are working together as a community. So Karen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just for full transparency to the audience, just want to put it out there that I am co-chair for your Racial Justice Advisory Council.
You are. We are also very lucky to have you because you are very busy. And one of the missions that I had coming in was to first acknowledge that there is a racial disparity, which is harder than you might think for some people. But really trying to reach out into communities that you don't see the prosecutor's office in. And we needed really good, enthusiastic people who were bright and smart, but then also actually do the work. And you were the perfect person to head that. So the Advisory Council, we're very proud of what we've done. I know you're very proud of what we've done. We're still learning, but basically we're trying to make sure a diverse amount of stakeholders have a seat at the table so that we can listen and hear what the concerns are, what we still need to do, what we're getting right. And I think for me, the big, the message that I've received and has been really critical is just how important it is to be in the community and open our perspective about who is it we are serving. We throw an event every year in Pontiac. One of the things that really made me very proud is all of the people from our office, both staff and prosecutors and attorneys, that show up for that. And it's just a great thing to see when you see there's been such a long history, particularly in Pontiac, with a real distrust of law enforcement. And what I really had as a vision is seeing us as people in the community outside the courtroom, where we're not standing in court trying to prosecute, scold, argue. And there's just there are really tremendous things that come from that aren't necessarily measurable. But when you're standing there and you're looking around, and then the feedback and the perspective of all of the assistant prosecutors changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I even throw that out there right up front, because I have people sometimes where they will see me and wonder, should they believe me because they think I work for the office? And I always say, no, I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
So that should actually speak volumes to you.
Right. All those hours.
Because I actually believe, you know, in the work that's being done. And so they have been amazed. The community is very pleased with the fact that you all are coming into the community and doing the work. I remember our first event where you got out there and you actually danced with the community.
There's photos of that.
There are photos. We will forever have that to be able to show people. But I just thought it was an amazing event, and to be able to have the office come out and interact with the community has been absolutely amazing.
Right.
And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talked about today, a little bit different than when you do most of your interviews with the media, is get to know who you are. You know, I did some research. I did not know that you were from Portland, Michigan.
I am from Portland, Michigan.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just had no idea.
Most people don't know where that is.
I know. I was thinking that too. I need to Google it.
It's in the middle of the state, and it's a very small farming community. And it's now become somewhat, I think, more of a suburb of Lansing. It's about 20 to 30 minutes away from Lansing. But yeah, I grew up in a very small town. My dad was a construction worker. My older sister was the first McDonald ever go to college. So I was raised by two people who didn't have a lot of opportunity and certainly didn't have wealth growing up. And they both worked really hard. And our bedtime stories were one day when you go to college, because that was very important to them. So I have two sisters, and all three of us have really tried to carry that out into the world, and out of respect for what my parents did and worked so hard, but also, you don't have to have a degree or letters after your name to be sophisticated and hardworking. And we had some really interesting conversations at the dinner table. And also, I grew up where my dad was in construction, so he left before I got up, and most of the time I saw him at night. I was in my pajamas about ready to go to bed. I grew up in the 80s. Those were a really tough time. He was laid off a lot. We were eating pancakes for dinner. But I talk about that a lot. I really think that's one of my biggest strengths. And I think it's so interesting now because people, they take a look at me, and I'm just this white lady named Karen who, seems, a lot of people assume I grew up, in Bloomfield Hills and I've been here forever. And that is not my story at all. And one of the things I think that really has driven me the direction that I've taken in my life and my work is so many of us live in these spaces where the people that we interact with don't know anybody who's ever been in real need in their life. Might not know anybody who ever had to worry about food or shelter. And it kind of ties back to what I'm trying to do with the Racial Advisory Council. I don't think it's my job to sit at a table and talk to, a group of people of color about what we need to do about racial disparity. Just like I don't think if you're from a perspective of you've never been in a situation where you were in need and those needs weren't met for economic reasons or discrimination, telling the set of people that have experienced those things is it's really not, I don't think, good leadership. So what I've tried to do is both with the assistant prosecutors that are in my office, because look, I can't get anybody to really embrace my mission about trying to address racial disparity or gun violence or whatever it is, but particularly racial disparity, if I can't even get my own office to understand the importance of it. And so...
And reflect it.
Yes.
Right? Which is something that you've actually done.
You know what? I'm not a big patter on my own back, but that is something that I hear consistently from day one. I met with every single person in the office, staff and lawyer. I don't know if you know this. It's about 200 people before I even took office. And some of the conversations I had when there was a person of color were very, very direct. And we have an assistant prosecutor who is a woman of color. She's been there for over 20 years, very well respected. And I said to her, I just am curious, can you talk to me about what it's like to be a Black woman in the prosecutor's office? And David, my chief assistant, was also on the Zoom and later was like, you cannot ask her that. And I said, David, she knows that she's a person of color. And, her jaw kind of just dropped when I asked her that. She said, nobody's ever asked me that. They just treat me like I'm white. And if I can't have those conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable and difficult, then I can't expect anyone else to have them. And I also can't pretend like we don't have that issue even in our own office, because we do. And attracting candidates that want to work there, they have to see that there are people there that look like them. And so we have the Racial Advisory Council, but then internally we have an equity team who talk about all sorts of these things. Because I can't mandate good work. I can't mandate that people be working towards ending racial disparity. That's a silly thing to try to do. You have to get buy-in. And the way you get buy-in is by sharing different perspectives with people. For instance, making sure the people in my office know that these are people you are prosecuting. Mm-hmm. These are fathers and brothers and sons and mothers and sisters, and they have a story, and they have their own life, and every decision we make impacts not just that person, but their future, and then everyone around them. Right. Because it's much easier to just assume these are just like bad people. Right. Bad people. We're prosecuting bad people, but that's not true. Right. One of the things I say is, as prosecutors, we stand up and with great pride, you say, before the case, right when the case begins, Karen McDonald on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan. So I was a prosecutor years and years, then I left and went to private practice, then became a judge, left that job to run for prosecutor. The first time I got to say that again, Karen McDonald on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan, was a very proud moment. But what I say to the people in my office is, it's on behalf of all the people. All the people. So
I appreciate that.
Victims of crime, witnesses, the defendant, the person who's charged with the crime, all the people. We are representing all the people. And so it is just as important that we insist on fair and just prosecution than that it is to get justice for a victim. Right. Because I think we're really changing what justice looks like.
You are. So I don't know if David's told you this, which I love David, you know this. I really would like to see the name change to the Office of Justice, because I believe,
he has told me that.
Yes, yeah. I believe that is exactly what you are doing. And there were a couple of things that happened for me in the beginning when I first came onto the council. And that was, we had meetings when your staff came onto the call, and it was virtual. And I felt like I could literally feel their heart through the screen. I mean, they were so excited about the changes that you had made. Those one-on-one conversations that you had with people, it made an impact.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you have the confidence and the care, really, to approach people directly and say, hey, I see you.
Yes.
I'm not going to pretend that color doesn't matter.
Because it does.
Because it does.
It's something that, yes, it does. Yeah. And also, I'm not going to pretend like I understand.
Right.
My job is to listen, and my job is to take what I hear and do the right thing. Right. But I just think we need to do a lot more listening.
Definitely.
And not get attached to this idea that we have it right all the time, because we don't. I mean, the criminal justice system right now is undergoing a serious evolution. And, we just can't be anchored so much to this traditional idea, because, first of all, the data doesn't support that we're doing the right thing all the time by just, vigorously prosecuting and charging the highest crime possible and advocating for the highest amount of years of detention. It just doesn't make us safer.
Right.
So I want to do what makes us safer. And there's so much hyperbole and just politics around, the crime rate is going up because of progressive prosecutors or people. And I don't like to be called progressive, and I don't like to be called traditional. I just like to be called fair and just.
Right.
And, I do insist that we care about who we're prosecuting, because we have a duty to do that.
Absolutely.
We have a duty to see the humanity in everyone. However, I also am relentless in and holding those accountable when that and really addressing violent crime and speaking up for people who can't advocate for themselves. And I think sometimes that's hard for people to digest because they want me to be just this one thing.
Right.
But we aren't just one thing.
We aren't.
You can be absolutely passionate and relentless about making sure you convict somebody who is a driver of violent crime and has caused real harm, and you need to protect the public, but you can also care about who we're prosecuting.
We have to.
We have
to be adaptable and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. And that's a vast array of needs, as you know. And when I think about some of the things that has been done in the office, I do think about the fairness that you talk about. I think about the accountability. You've actually led, I believe, you've shown a model for the country in terms of how to even deal with violence that happens in school, with the high profile cases that have come out. And there are a number of people who have not seen anybody be that strong on some of these issues before.
Yeah, I think it just really surprised everybody.
It did.
But, we have kids who are afraid to go to school. But the one thing I won't let anyone forget is that school shootings and targeted violence is a tragedy that, we'll never really even be able to understand or wrap our heads around. But it isn't the bulk of gun violence. And gun violence now is the number one killer of children.
Right.
And the majority of gun violence is not targeted mass shootings that occur in schools. Over half is suicide. And then we have some pretty major gun violence going on in urban communities, gang related. So because this is I think the thing I'm very sensitive to. There's a lot of attention paid when a white kid is injured or killed, and rightly so. But I think I sit down with members of the Pontiac community on a weekly basis. They've got their kids are dying.
Yep.
On a weekly basis.
That's right.
So we can't just hone in and legislate and react just to a school shooting. And so I started this commission to address gun violence and really going upstream and understanding why somebody gets to a state of crisis and picks up a weapon, a deadly weapon, and chooses to take somebody's life.
Right.
And nobody was really talking about it in a comprehensive way. Immediately, gang violence, what the traditional is, well, we have to arrest and prosecute and incarcerate, without really talking about, well, okay, why are young people why affiliating with gangs?
What's the root cause?
Right. We know that as moms. We know that, right? We know it's because there are no real good alternatives, and they're going to seek safety and community wherever they can. And you have to show alternate paths, and then you have to lift up a community so that they can provide those resources. And we have to just look at it in a comprehensive way. And so most of the time it results in a debate about guns, and then everything stops.
Right.
So I'm pretty hopeful about what we're doing in that space with experts out from all over the country.
And that's what I was going to say. I'm glad you said that, because what makes this different is that you have intentionally sought out experts and not just people who have theories, right? Who've written white papers, right? And can bring a different perspective and look for a comprehensive solution, which is not only talking about how we react, but how do we prevent violence from happening in the first place.
Right.
So that's pretty exciting.
I think that's just probably, I just don't give up. So that all came about organically because after Oxford, I just started spending every moment I could educating myself. And if I read a book, I would just email the author.
Okay.
I did.
I like that.
And they would answer me, and then I would be on the phone with them. If I listened to a podcast, I would reach out to whoever was speaking and have conversations and ask questions. And then that would lead me to another set of data or another book. And I see a lot of great things happening in different capacities. But for instance, even in the state of Michigan, we've had task force and commissions on school violence, but the majority of gun violence does not take place in schools. Right. I testified in front of the Senate committee, the state Senate committee a few days ago, and I said, look, we're just as in danger here in this room because there's no metal detectors or safety of any kind there, wow. As we are in a school, probably more. We need to also address, workplaces and right. government entities, right. and because somebody can be in crisis and have a weapon anywhere. And so it just seems so short-sighted to me that we're just going to focus on schools. We definitely need to focus on schools, but particularly because that's where we can really get at root causes.
Right.
And I've just learned a lot. I've learned a lot about, social emotional curriculums and what we can teach kids. We teach kids all sorts of things. We teach kids about race when they hopefully allow us to. We teach kids about math and reading, but we also teach them basic life skills, right?
Right.
But we don't teach kids how to name and process their own emotions, what it feels like when you're in crisis and need help, what to do. We don't teach distress tolerance at all.
And I think part of that too is because as adults, most people don't even know how to articulate their own feelings, let alone teach their children how to do it. And then when we talk to each other about it, particularly if you bring in politics, right? Yeah. The conversation goes downhill and we never really get to the point of having a true discussion and figuring out how we can work together to find solutions.
Listen, if you're trying to do anything in any capacity, be it public sector, private sector, and you're trying to lead any group or business, I don't care what you're doing, if you don't care about feelings, then you're not going to be successful. Plain and simple.
Right.
So we talk about feelings. What we do is serious work. And emotional IQ, I'd rather have somebody with a high emotional IQ than experience any day. Because particularly what we do, we sit down with people who have experienced the most painful thing one could ever imagine. And we have an obligation to approach that with the dignity and respect that it deserves and that person deserves. And that means I see you.
Right.
And being vulnerable enough to say that.
Right.
And also acknowledging, I might not be able to fix all of this, but I am going to try.
Right. I do believe that this current administration, the team that you have now, is not only telling people, I see you, but from the lens of an activist is saying, and I'm going to do something about it.
Right.
Right. And I see over and over and over, whether it is you creating a commission to look at how do we get to the root cause and prevention, but you've created a conviction integrity unit and you've actually looked at cases that have been unjust, unfair, so that you can make sure that people get a second chance at life.
And, that happened really before the conviction integrity unit started. That was one of my goals and immediately started taking steps to put that together. But we stumbled upon a case when I first took office about, an arson that had taken place and taken the lives of 5 kids. And the person serving time for that was Juwan Daring. And really just stumbled upon some pretty serious prosecutor and police misconduct that led to that conviction. And so there I was in a space where here I am, the highest ranking law enforcement official, and I'm now advocating that we let somebody out of prison because it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
But I remember he wanted to meet me. And of course I said, sure. So after the whole proceedings were over, it took several months actually. But when he was released, he had so much grace. He had so much grace, and he said, I'm just not going to live the rest of my life angry. But thank you for doing what you did. It was hard to feel good about that because I think we're all part of the problem that led to that in the first place. But I just think we need to do more of acknowledging when we were wrong.
Right.
And immediately putting things, I mean, I wasn't even there when he was convicted. It was not but I'm part of a system, right? We all are. So yes, and then we also held the first ever expungement fair that, which to me, again, really just acknowledging the humanity and every case we have. We also are very mindful, and we're working towards how we charge a case, what's expungible later. Charging somebody and convicting somebody with a felony is a serious thing because it follows them for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
And, it's harder. The job, being a prosecutor in that way is a lot more difficult. It's very easy if we can just assume that, the people that we prosecute are bad and whatever they get, they deserve, and let's go on to the next one. But there really aren't very many differences between the people who we're charging with crimes and those that are prosecuting them.
Right. I really appreciate you saying that. I've had the opportunity, as you know, to meet quite a few of your assistant prosecuting attorneys. And one of the things that I noticed immediately is that they see people as equal. Immediately you can tell that the standard and the expectation that you set for the office is something that they already embody. And like you said, it's not something you can mandate. It has to be in them. And I truly believe that it is in them. And in the work that we've done thus far, I feel like it makes it easy for someone like me in the community to say, you know what, you might not be comfortable with law enforcement because that's what this agency is.
Right.
But give them a chance because this is going to look very differently than what you've heard and what you've experienced before.
But the good news is, I mean, I'd like to take credit for that, but look, the world's changing.
It is.
Our state is changing.
It is.
If you would have asked me if I could have campaigned in my commercial holding a Black Lives Matter sign 5 years ago in Oakland County, I would have said no way. But the people coming to want to work for me are doing so for a reason. They feel they want fair and just prosecution. So.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. I certainly do. And I just want to really thank you. You've heard me say this before, but I want you to know when I go out in the community, I let people know Karen is the real deal. And
I appreciate it.
You really are.
We don't get it right all the time, but I do try.
But that's okay.
Yes.
But we're working together to do that. So I really appreciate you coming today.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
To our listening audience, I really want you to make sure that you do something for me. I want you to go back, watch this again. I want you to take it in terms of thinking about how we can talk about fairness, how we can talk about justice, but we can also talk about giving people second chances. And we're in a climate right now where people think we can't do all of that at the same time. So share this message with everybody you know. Tell family, tell friends, tell your neighbors. Take a look at who we have as our prosecutor. And we're asking you that when we come to the community and we have a town hall, show up and let us know what you're thinking and how you're feeling. And we can tell you how you can engage with us and we can lock arms and work together as a community to make things better. We thank you so much for tuning in and have a great time.